spend remains commensurate with the benefits that they expect to generate in pursuing with a reform agenda. Second, sound reform should be defined as the delivery of sustained change over a period of time, not flash-in-the-pan stuff. This change is as much about human capability and alignment as it is about administrative change. It's about achieving the right balance between systems and people and balancing the needs of the present and the future, which includes these stewardship obligations that we've been talking about earlier on, and of getting that balance right between centralisation and decentralisation as technologies change over time. Third, incentives and the accountability framework fundamentally matter. Effective change requires behavioural change. This requires good communication of the case for change and the nature of what is expected. However, in addition, that's not enough. In addition, the incentive structures and the accountability regimes have to be aligned with the objectives of the reform. As we all know, in applying incentives and administering an accountability framework, we do get what we measure, but what the regulators and what the public service leaders do is more important than what they say. Their actions will drive an organisation's culture and its approach to things like the acceptable standards of work, values within the workforce, and the focus that we put on the citizens whose needs we seek to serve. Fourth, it's also important to recognise that the various elements of a specific reform process need not be undertaken or completed all at once. Establishing priorities for change and realistic timeframes is a significant component of any sound reform. Fifth, in the tradition of our predecessors, we should continue to enrich reform approaches through self-critical evaluation, through research, and through knowledge of international best practice. In short, with evidence. And as ahead of the game advocates, to do this by forging better links with public administration research and training institutions, and here I'll give ANSOG a commercial, as well as other think tanks. And this applies to all aspects of public sector activity, not just of public administration. Now, ahead of the game has quite rightly stolen from, which my text says drawn on, recent developments in the United Kingdom, Canada and New Zealand to adapt and to borrow new technologies, new techniques to foster accountability and improve links with citizens and others to achieve better outcomes. The Citizen Survey and the capability reviews are examples of this. But has also learnt from our experience with past reform about the need to get the balance right between the immediate needs and longer term ones, between too loose and too tight approaches to devolution of the authority to act. And these are reflected in the heightened attention to be paid to the stewardship responsibilities of secretaries and the stronger emphasis on approaches in the blueprint to managing human capital. A management approach to human capital that acknowledges that we are one Australian public service, united by a common set of values, by a common set of expectations about performance, and by a common focus on achieving outcomes for the citizens of our country, because that's what we're here for. We're not here for ourselves, we're here for them. And my sixth reflection is, at the end of the day, reform is about people. It's about their motivations, the incentives they face, their flexibility and their willingness to change. It's about focusing and refocusing on factors such as employee engagement. Now, in the APS context, we professionalised our financial management processes long ago, but we've not achieved the same degree of professionalisation of our human capital approaches. Perhaps they're too difficult to quantify, but it seems to me that if we want to take some of these agendas forward, we're going to have to address that issue about how we professionalise human capital management in the public service. And my final observation, based on our experience since the 70s, is the central importance of good leadership. This imperative recurs in review after the last 40 years. We need to develop in each generation leaders who embody the best values of public service, who look outward to identifying the needs of the citizens whom we serve, who look forward to anticipating emerging issues and building resilient organisations, who are not afraid to take on the tough issues, who are accountable, who know how to communicate and manage change, and know how to work with governments and ministers to implement their agenda, but also to influence their agenda in order to effect change. Building such a leadership cadre is a fundamental precondition for sustained reform and for high performance. Now, before I conclude, which I'll do reasonably quickly, I was struck a little earlier on that my previous speaker here quoted from the shortest book in the world, and that challenged me to check to make sure that in fact my understanding of the drivers of public sector change were in fact contemporary. So I went to the Oracle, Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, and I just wanted to check to make sure that I ticked off all of the, because he was a little bit kind of into fundamental reform as opposed to incremental change. But I thought I'd just check my kind of analysis against him, and he said, what was it, 500 BC? He said, there are 5 circumstances in which victory may be predicted. He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious. Sorry about the gender language. He who understands how to use both large and small forces will be victorious. He whose ranks are united in purpose will be victorious. He who is prudent and lies in wait for the enemy who is not will be victorious. He whose generals are able and not interfered with by the sovereign will be victorious. I have no idea what he meant. Thank you very much.